Hi everyone, today I'm going to be going a little deeper into the world of linked open data. Since we just had some introductory lecture videos, I won't talk too much about the bare basics of the concept of linked open data. Um, Instead, as a bit of review, we can do something fun and explore more linked open data through the linked open data cloud that Jeffrey touched on in his intro video. So to review, this is basically a diagram of over 1,250 datasets and the links in between them. The colors differentiate between the topics of datasets. The site has separated them into 9 categories, as you can see here in this legend. And you can click on this data cloud here and access the cloud in detail. So if you hover over any of these points, it highlights the data set and then the link to another data set. So you can see here that OLIA has a lot of links to other data sets. And these links to other data sets are based on shared data. So if a data set has over 50 RDF links to another data set, then this link will appear in the cloud. And this is an arbitrary number that they picked just for this diagram and the stuff that they're saving. You can imagine that if they only required 1 or 2 links between datasets, then there would be a lot more links between these. But it shows, the point of this is that it shows conceptually what the semantic web is, of basically a web that is based on links between data. And it shows the power of the semantic web is in making these connections for you, basically. So right now on the quote unquote non-semantic web, these connections between data sets or between sites or between things are made more or less manually, if they're made at all. And this is obviously a much easier way to do this, and it connects a lot more things together. So anyway, clicking on any of these points in the dataset, I'll just click on one randomly, directs you to a page with more detail about that dataset. And if we scroll down a little, you can see here the total number of triples in the dataset. And a triple, I have a diagram here, is basically a set of 2 data points and the thing that connects them. So it's sort of 3 pieces of data, hence triple. So here we have Tim Berners-Lee, London, and they're connected because London is Tim's birthplace. So you have, one piece of data Tim, one piece of data birthplace, like the relationship is sort of treated as a piece of data in a way, and London as the third. So this diagram actually has 2 triples because it shows Tim birthplace London and Tim birth date as June 8th, 1955. Anyway, back to our data page here. You can also download the metadata in these different formats. So I have gone to the Universal Dependencies Croatian Tree Bank. Don't worry too much about what that is, but basically I just downloaded in advance this RDF-XML file, and we can open it up here to get a closer look at how RDF is actually implemented and what it looks like. And this is really what I want to focus on because I think it's helpful in understanding how to make your data into linked open data and make it compatible with linked open data projects like this cloud. So this is what it looks like. This is not the tree bank's data. It's not the data about the tree bank's particular resources, but it's data about the entry on the linked data cloud site, if that makes sense. But anyway, at the top here, this whole section is what's called the document elements, which are used to declare the standard schemas that they're using for this metadata document. You might have already seen this if you are familiar with XML, or Dublin Core for that matter. So here they've declared that they are using Dublin Core syntax, which makes this an especially nice example for us. and they provide a link to the standard schema definitions that they're using here. And here they are declaring that they are using RDF or referencing RDF, and they provide a link to this RDF syntax schema that they're using here. And this is done by first opening what is called the root tag, the RDF document root tag, I believe is the official way, but basically this RDF here. And this is the entire opening tag, and then it is closed down here. So it's basically saying that everything within these tags is going to be following the RDF standards and also the Dublin core standards and the other standards that they're referencing here. Okay, so the standard that they link to then becomes a sort of dictionary for interpreting this code, and you and any machines can expect this document to be RDF compatible, and you know how to read the terms that are being used. Okay, the next opening tag is this, RDF description tag, which means that within this description tag, which is closed down here also, is the data about the thing that we're describing, if that makes any sense. So all the thing within that is going to be the data about what's being described. Okay, so now for the actual data part, we can see here RDF about, and I'll just, it goes, this is the unique resource identifier, and, the URL in this case, and it contains a link to the data set that is being described. So it's basically saying, rather intuitively, that this unique identifier is what is being described with RDF. And so everything that follows, or rather everything within the description tag, it's a little weird being outside of the description tag, but don't worry about it. Everything within the description tag is going to be referring to or describing this resource. And that is pretty much it as far as the basics of RDF. And that's really all that you need to do to make it RDF compatible. And the rest can just be done in other standards, in this case in Dublin core standards. So if we see here, the Dublin core is, the DC term subject is declaring that using the Dublin core definition for what subject means, the subject is being defined as linguistics. And because this DC terms is within the RDF description tag, and we've already declared what it is about, that's pretty much all that you need to do to allow the machine reading it to connect the subject of linguistics to this resource. And so you can do that with any DC term. You can see here, Dublin core terms title is Universal Dependencies Tree Bank Croatian, and that is the title of this resource up here. And all these additional RDF tags, it's more complicated stuff. Obviously, there's a lot more things you can do with RDF to make it better and to link to other data. So for example, just briefly, this RDF resource is basically just linking to this other existing unique identifier or URL that basically it's like, rather than having to link it by hand, and you can just declare that you are referencing this additional resource, and you can see here that's how it's being described as the access URL. But the point is, don't worry too much about that. There's obviously a lot more than you can do with RDF, but as long as you just declare your document as being RDF compatible, and you declare what section is related to the thing that you are describing in RDF, and provide the unique resource identifier, in an about tag, RDF about, then that is all that you need to do, and the rest is just Dublin core. Um, so the point that I want to make is that if you can learn and implement Dublin core, then you can definitely learn and implement RDF. A few notes to wrap up with here is that RDF is not the only linked data standard, but it is a very common format and relatively easy to integrate into XML and Dublin core, so it's probably a good one to start with learning. And remember that the purpose of RDF is to create a standard schema or provide a standard schema for creating relationships between data in a machine readable way, so that this allows you to, or allows a machine to read this connection and to see that this Greek something is connected to the word net something, without you having to physically provide a link to it on the Greek page. So by doing this, you basically create stronger and more intuitive links between data so that it can be more easily found without needing to search for it directly, simply by the web putting it into context with other data. So I'll go ahead and hammer home Jeffrey's point, which is that linked data is very valuable and absolutely worth the time to learn and implement. I obviously barely scratched the surface here, so if you want a next step, I highly recommend a couple particular websites. This one, linkeddatatools.com, is really helpful for just describing the very basic building blocks of RDF documents, like how to build an RDF document, and it goes into a little more detail about how the descriptions work and how the statements work and that sort of thing. And there's also the W3C RDF-XML syntax page, which, you know, is the official syntax page that was linked to in this RDF document. And so it shows you exactly what the proper syntax is for it, and it's surprisingly readable. At least the first little bit here is surprisingly readable, and it gives you some examples about what RDF might look like. So I highly recommend doing a little further research if this interests you, and, you know, frankly, even if it doesn't interest you, because this is pretty much the future of the web. So thanks for listening, and I hope that you enjoyed exploring it a little more. Bye.